Hi guys, Matt from Shirts Off to Dementia here. Hope you're all well. This week we've got something a little bit different. We're really excited, aren't we? Because the Premier League is just around the corner and I, for one, I cannot wait. The pre-season vibe, it's just, I don't know, it's just not the same, is it? I've watched a few games. I've got one on at the moment, I think half-time, sort of lower league English sides. It's just, you know, there's so many different factors at play. New personnel, formations being tried out, squad rotation. There's just too much, but really excited. So here in the UK, we've got the English Football League starting next weekend. At the same time as Liverpool and Man City play in the Community Shield, and in the Premier League kicks off in, well, it'll be 2 weeks now. We will have had our first game on the Friday night, Arsenal Crystal Palace, and we will probably right now be in the middle of the afternoon game. So really excited, and that always sort of begs the question, what's going to happen? What do we think our predictions are going to be? Who's going to finish where? So I thought I would share with you, I guess, my expectations of the season ahead and where I think most of the teams will finish. Big caveat, this is based, I guess, on previous knowledge of how teams have performed in the Premier League. Try not to have any bias, although clearly I'm a Liverpool fan. I'm a realistic Liverpool fan. And also we know that between the recording of this film and also the end of August, you know, there will be more transfers. So I can only really comment on the transfers that have gone through the books to date. So what do I think is going to happen? And well, I think it's going to be another exciting season. And by all means, pop in your comments what you think your 20 is going to look like. But let's look at the top half of the Premier League. These are my predictions. So, as you can see, no real rocket science in terms of my top six. The top six are the teams that you would expect to see. I'm really struggling, even as a Liverpool fan, to see beyond Manchester City. I think they are just phenomenal at the moment. They've got a depth in their squad that they continually to build. And even when we see outgoing players like Zinchenko, like Sterling, like Jesus, they just bring in even better players. And so I think, you know, under the leadership of Pep Guardiola, I really struggle to see how they just won't continue their form. I think I struggle to see how anyone, and I include Liverpool in this, will keep so close to them. We've had 2 seasons, Liverpool, either side of obviously our winning season, where, you know, we've lost by a point and we've scored really highly. I don't think that's sustainable for all clubs. I think for City, yes. I think City have shown an ability to grind out results. I mean, look at the last day last season. I think anyone seeing them 2-0 down would have said, you know what, they're going to turn this around. I think had Liverpool been in that position, I wouldn't have been so confident. So my prediction is that City are going to finish first. I think Liverpool will run a second, but I don't think it'll be as close. And then I think really you've got the rest of the teams. Now I think City are going to finish some, I don't know, 10 to 15 points ahead of third place. It's more a question of where Liverpool then are going to fit in. I think third, Spurs are looking really strong this year. They've made some really good early signings. I think Richarlison is a good signing for them. I think he'll fit in well. And I think, you know, that they've promised over the last few seasons and they've just fell short. And I think they're certainly capable of a cup this year. But I think, you know, at minimum, their expectations need to be Champions League qualification. They've obviously got that this season, so they'll be playing Champions League football. And I think that will only enhance their team and their squad. So I think they'll run third. I think fourth, we'll see Chelsea. I'm still struggling to see how Chelsea will improve on previous seasons. The gap between Chelsea and Liverpool and City over the last 5 or 6 years has been quite incredible, really, for a team of their stature. I think under Tuchel they've got real opportunity there, but I think they still need to tighten up their defence. At the moment, there's still a possibility they're going to strengthen that area. but they've obviously brought Koulibaly in from Europe, and I think he'll go well in centre back with Silva. I think Sterling is an exciting addition, and then they've obviously got quality players in there. But I think they're still rebuilding. The jury's out still for me as to how they perform. So I think they'll run in fourth, fifth, sixth. I'm unsure at the moment. I think I've put Arsenal in at fifth to just nudge out United. I think Arsenal. I think Jesus is a top addition. I think he's that sort of player has been needed for a while. I just hope they don't do what they normally do, which is show that sort of early promise and fade away. But I can't see them being a top four team. So I think they'll run tight in behind fourth, finish fifth. I think United are in a transitional phase. I think top six is realistic. I think there are still, for me, question marks around the team. What's going to happen to Ronaldo? They've brought Eriksen in, but I think it's going to take time. And I think all United fans would, say, let this guy, let Ten Hag come in. They've looked promising in pre-season, but pre-season to Premier League is a very different thing. But they're in a new transition phase, so I think a top six is probably the best expectation. Then we've got 7 through to 10. I think we've got sort of what I call our steady par golfers in there. I think Leicester, West Ham and Wolves. West Ham, definitely a top half finish. I think this year they've grown in strength. I think they're in need of a couple more players. They had a really good run last year in the Europa. I think Newcastle are going to be the team that will show a lot of improvement this year. We started to see that after the new investment last season. I think it's really exciting what Eddie Howe's doing there. They're building the team. I think, again, a top half finish would be a good first full season under their new ownership as they continue to rebuild. I think Wolves, steady team. I don't think they're going to be challenged this year in terms of those bottom spots. I think there's worse teams there. So I think that makes up your top 10. No real surprises. But the bottom half, let's look at the bottom half here. So I think the big question here is who are the teams I think are going to go down, and then what's that going to mean for the rest of them? Now we all know it's incredibly hard coming up from the Championship and remaining in the Premier League. We see it season after season. Last year Fulham, blew teams away, were really impressive. They've lost Carvalho to Liverpool, who's looking a really promising player from our perspective. But I think moving into the Premier League is a really different ball game. Bournemouth, they showed some vulnerability towards those latter weeks, and they just nudged Forest into the playoffs right at the death. And obviously Forest coming up, having started that last season right down in the bottom and then had a huge change of fortune under Steve Cooper. They've made a couple of interesting signings, not least they got Neco Williams in from Liverpool, who I've followed with interest. He's a good little player there, and I think Forest could be a good side for him. And obviously over the last 24 hours, Jesse Lingard's gone in on a 12-month contract. So who knows? So what do I think? Well, as you can see from my predictions there, I think the three that are going to go down are going to be Bournemouth, Fulham and Leeds. I think Leeds rode their luck last season. They escaped it right at the death. I just think there's stronger teams there. They've lost Rafinha. I really struggle to see how Leeds are going to do that based on what I saw last year. I think Fulham and Bournemouth will struggle. I think Forest, out of the three teams that have come up, I think they'll just sneak it. I personally would like to see them do better than 17th, but we'll see. And then for the rest of the places, I think Crystal Palace. I mean, I love Vieira. I think they'll have a pretty decent year. I think they're sort of finishing in the top section of the second half. I think Brighton have got a good manager, nothing special. So again, I think they'll fall just below middle. Villa the same, Steven Gerrard still rebuilding. They've got some good players there. Coutinho's there. We saw glimpses of that team last season. And then you've got Brentford, Southampton and Everton. And I guess this is where my dilemma is. I think Brentford won't have the season that they had last year. They were very impressive at times. They've obviously lost Eriksen to United. Southampton, I think they'll be in a battle. I think they could be the ones sort of down there with Forest, Everton, vying it out. And Everton, I really do fear for Everton, and I'm not saying just as a Liverpool fan. I've yet to see evidence in the transfer market that they're going to strengthen, and they've actually seen outgoings. You know, Richarlison, who they relied on for goals, has gone to Spurs. They battled it out last year, and okay, you could argue that actually in the midst of that battle they ground out some phenomenal results against top 4 teams to sort of keep them out of relegation. And I admire Lampard. I get what he's trying to do, but I just think the whole setup at Everton, the ownership, something has got to change. It's got to be a radical change, and I think that's going to, you know, that will need then a transitional phase. So I think if Everton can get through again this season and avoid relegation, I think that's going to be their objective, unless they dip into a transfer market in the remaining weeks. So that's my thoughts. What do you think? Hit the comments below. And we will revisit this midway through the season and at the end of the season. Anything could happen. These things are really hard to predict, aren't they? And we've got a World Cup in the middle of this, so it will be interesting to see how teams with players at the World Cup may or may not be affected. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you agree with some of my choices, and we'll see you again really soon.